Okay, so first of all, I want to say thank you to everybody that's been watching. Um, it's been such a pleasure to kind of interact with everyone and just kind of go through this. And if you remember this John Benet thing for me, um, I, I didn't see this. I was young when I saw this. You know what I mean? I remember going through Albertsons and seeing her face plastered all over like magazines and stuff like that. So at the time, I really didn't comprehend what was going on. And just kind of as as time went on, I got a little bit more familiar and just kind of watching different documentaries and stuff like that, getting a better understanding. But even through this process, understanding even a little bit more about this case. And I'll be honest with you. I have my own opinions, but I don't want to be, super biased. I'm not here to be biased. I'm just here to read and talk about emotions. And so this video is Dr. Cyril Wecht. He was a American, I think, forensic pathologist, and he just recently passed earlier this year, 2024, I think in May. And the thing about him was he had an opinion on JonBenet Ramsey, but I think some of the biggest things that he was known for was the Kennedy, I think Kennedy assassination discussions and stuff like that, from what I can tell. But I was recommended this video or just to check him out. And so I pulled up a video that I thought was pretty interesting because I was struggling with understanding the DNA portion of it. And he had a pretty good perspective of it, one that I think I was wrestling with internally, but John has a really good poker face, I'll say that. And so I'd like to go through some more stuff for John specifically to understand how John is hiding, because like I said, John is a businessman. So John does a lot of work, it seems, and just maybe because of the person that he is, he does a lot of work to hide how he feels and sort of shield his emotions. And that can come from a lot of things, you maybe the way you grew up and and it doesn't necessarily mean that you had to grow up in a bad home, but maybe you perceived it as a disadvantageous situation. And so you started coping in a certain way. So this is Dr. Wecht and his opinion on the case.
Let me just mention, and I'll wrap it up, let's ask some questions. JonBenet Ramsey and O.J. Simpson.
Sorry for the quality.
I had been away with my family the Christmas holiday and came back. And I remembered when I was away, while I am an avid reader of 5 newspapers when I'm here, when I'm away, I get away from that, but I see an occasional paper and so on. And I remembered seeing a picture of this girl that I thought something like she was a midget or something. And when I got back, there was a phone call from...
Why a midget? Well, maybe because of the makeup.
One of the national tabloids, I think it was the National Enquirer or Globe, one of the two, and asked me if I would review some pictures they had. And I said, sure. It happens with me all the time. So they sent me these pictures, and I see, it's this little girl, JonBenet Ramsey. She's not a midget, she's a 6-year-old girl. She had been made to look like a woman with all of the, had more makeup probably than any single woman here in this audience has tonight, and so on. This little beauty queen, and she's been murdered, they say. So what's the story with JonBenet? Her mother tells us that she got up at 5:30, day after Christmas, and prepared some little breakfast. Family was going to leave to upstate Michigan for the rest of their Christmas holiday, and she sees a note propped up on a step, like this. And the note, as she reads it, is a kidnap note. It says, "We represent a small foreign faction, and we're demanding," well, how much would you demand? I don't think you've done any kidnappings. This is your first one. And this guy, he's worth about $300 million. He just sold his business. So what would you ask? Maybe $250,000? Okay, all right. There's a guy back there in that red sweater. He's done a couple jobs. What, $500,000, right? Okay. I see a guy there in the back with a tie and white shirt. He's trying to pretend he's a solid citizen. I can recognize a veteran kidnapper when I see one. What do you go for, $1 million, sir? What do you think, okay? So you know what was asked for in this ransom note? $118,000. It's a nice round number, right? Exactly the amount of money that John Ramsey had been paid as a bonus from his company the year before. How many people would have known John Ramsey's bonus of $118,000? And now this kidnapper, who has found a way to come into the house without awakening anybody, knowing where her room is, not awakening her, that she would cry out, the brother Burke, 3 years older, just a few feet away, not awakening him or the parents, and he knows about a back set of stairs that go down into the basement that a maid who had worked there for 6 months never knew existed.
I love that he is pointing out, number one, who would have known about 108? First of all, you don't even have to know about 118K. Like, who would just up and write down $118,000? Okay, maybe it's coincidence, but then it's dead on. Like, you some sort of prophet or something like that? Like 118K? That's why we have to look inward, John. When you get upset at us and we're like, I mean, I'm just trying to figure out the case, John. I'm not trying to be biased. We're just trying to figure out the case because you wrote down $118,000. I gotta check into that. Sorry.
That the detectives who were called at 6 o'clock in the morning.
But you can't blame me because he's getting just as amped up as I am, because it's just like, yo, there's too much stuff going on for it to be a coincidence.
Searching for a little girl in a house. That's a good sized house. Some of you live in bigger houses.
Correct.
They're searching in a house for a little girl. They never found this room at the base of the steps. It wasn't until 7 hours later that John Ramsey says to his then best friend, who turned on him and became his worst enemy, nightmare for him. John Ramsey says to his friend, whom he invited over, let's go down to the basement and look again. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And according to his then best friend, before the lights are even on in the room, as Ramsey opens up the door, he exclaims, "Oh my God, there's my daughter." And they take the little girl's body up. And the coroner is called 7 hours later, gets there, doesn't see the body until 8:30. By that time, the indicia that we use, rigor mortis, body stiffening, lever mortis, the settling, gravitational settling of blood and the dependent parts of the body, algor mortis, body temperature, that we use to determine when somebody died, forget about it. After 8 hours, the error rate, the range is too great to be of any.
This is what I also did notice. Yo, think about this. They let's assume we don't know. Again, I'm trying to be totally unbiased here, but we don't know that JonBenet has been, well, we know at 5:30 in the morning, we knew that she was kidnapped. If we don't assume that we know who did it, then dang, she's been sitting there for a while. Rigor mortis starts to set in. But if we do assume that we know who did it, yo, y'all really had JonBenet downstairs since 5:30 in the morning, even longer, because somebody knew what was going on. And again, I'm trying to be unbiased. There could be other theories. Maybe the maid let somebody in, as some of you have suggested. Maybe there was somebody on the loose running around the neighborhood. So I'm trying to be as unbiased as possible. But if you did know, and this was you talking about allegedly inside the Ramsey's house, I'm just saying that's crazy. You got your daughter down there probably since the day before, because who knows when this really took place. I know you're telling me you got up at 5:30 and that's when you knew. And even I'm just letting him finish his theory and then I'll talk about it.
Specificity. And so they blew that completely. And it makes a determination that she died. And it's interesting when you read the autopsy report, talks about this fracture on the top of the head of 8.5 inches from front to back, and then the rope around the neck and so on. Interestingly, the rope around the neck, the collar of this sweater pajama was pulled up like this, so that the rope wasn't touching the skin. Mm-hmm. Down here on the sleeve where it was tied, it was over the sweater so that it did not touch the skin.
Right.
And guess what? In the autopsy of this 6-year-old girl, most of the hymen was missing. There is chronic inflammation seen in the mucosa, the lining of the velvet microscopically. And that means something 48, 72 hours or more had caused it to become inflamed.
Correct.
And then at the 7 o'clock position, focal superficial erosion. And I don't mean to be crude
Correct.
or insensitive, but in order for you to understand this, the women can think of the pelvic exam when a right-handed examiner, she was examining you and doing an examination of the organs and so on, where that finger would go, 7 o'clock
Correct.
position. And then under polarized light, you take a blue prism and you put it on the optic of the regular microscope, and you see bi-refringent materials, which can't be seen unless you use the blue prism. You know what the most ubiquitous source of birefringent materials is in every single one of our homes without exception? Talcum powder. You get the idea? There's no evidence at all of intrusion into the valve. There's no great injury, a minor abrasion. You got the chronic inflammation, you got the absence of the hymen to a great extent, you got the focal superficial erosion at the 7 o'clock position, and you got birefringent material. Begin to get a picture? I have to spell it out for you anymore. This is a game that had been played many times, who knows, before. Patsy Ramsey, the wife, she was out of the sex business, ovarian cancer, surgery, chemotherapy, radiation therapy. She's not in the business. Little JonBenet, she's the surrogate. There was no intent to harm her. This was a game that was played. The binding phenomenon, not that little girl got any pleasure from it, but the vicarious thrill, a well-known phenomenon. In sex games, that binding effect. I just saw the TV program. We don't watch much TV. I'm reminded, but I heard about this great program with Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson called True Detectives. I don't know if you've seen it. It's really delightful, very fascinating. And there's this one scene where he, cheating on his wife, Harrelson, she handcuffs him to the bedpost, and then they go on from there. So binding is a well-known phenomenon.
This is what I want to say. This is what I want to say about this theory. The fact that he said that this is a game that's been playing many times, and I'm trying to find it on John's face. I'm struggling to find it on his face. You know, Patsy's sleep. Maybe Burke is not coming around because he doesn't understand. But what he's saying is that John may have been more involved with JonBenet, you know, because, you know, and I don't want to judge nobody, but, you know, human nature is human nature in some cases, and some people go to certain lengths that, you know, we don't want them to go to, you know. But, you know, when you think that you can get away with something, and you have your own needs and feelings that you might put in front of other people, then, you know, this is kind of what you get. So I'm going to let this stop right here and then come back. But I really love what he's doing. I love where he's going with this. But yeah, man, until the next video, take it easy.